Welcome to the deep dive. We've got quite a stack of global sources this week, covering a lot of ground from climate disasters and security issues to medical advances and some really tough labor challenges.
It's definitely a wide scope, and our goal today, as always, is to kind of cut through it all, synthesize these different strands quickly, clearly, give you those key insights you need on these interconnected global risks, but also maybe where some real innovation is happening, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have to start with the sheer force of nature we've seen recently. Let's begin in the Caribbean with Hurricane Melissa and the impact on Jamaica.
Yeah, this was historic. Sources called it the strongest storm ever recorded to actually hit Jamaica.
And economic numbers are just mind-blowing.
Okay.
Damage estimates starting around $6 to $7 billion.
That's the conservative estimate. And to put that in perspective, that's somewhere between, say, 28 and 32% of Jamaica's entire annual GDP. Imagine losing almost a third of your country's economic output from one event.
Wow.
And the immediate fallout, they're looking at a short-term drop in economic output of maybe 8 to 13%. It's huge.
And that kind of hit forces big decisions, right?
Right.
The government had to suspend its fiscal rules. Can you maybe break down what suspending fiscal rules actually means in this context for people not deep in international finance?
Sure. It's a major step. Fiscal rules are basically promises a government makes to itself, and often to lenders, about financial discipline. Things like caps on debt-to-GDP ratios or limits on deficits. But when you face a catastrophe like this, you have to spend money immediately on rescue, on recovery, on rebuilding. You borrow whatever it takes. Those rules go out the window because human safety and basic reconstruction have to come first. You suspend the rules to deal with the crisis.
Right, makes sense. And the Prime Minister himself described Melissa's power using some pretty stark language, said it was on the very edge of what is physically possible.
That phrase really hits home, doesn't it? And the science backs it up. The sources pointed out that these storms are intensifying faster, getting stronger, because the oceans are warmer. That's the fuel. Greenhouse gas is warming the sea surface, giving these storms extra power. Melissa fed off record temperatures.
And the tragedy wasn't confined to Jamaica. The death toll hit 75 across the region, 32 confirmed in Jamaica, but 43 in Haiti, even though Haiti wasn't directly hit by the eye.
Right, Haiti got days and days of relentless rain from the outer bands. That caused terrible flooding, something like 12,000 homes flooded, loss of drinking water. It just shows how vulnerable neighboring areas are to these secondary effects like flooding, landslides. It's not just about where the eye makes landfall.
So the focus shifts to rebuilding, but rebuilding smarter, hopefully.
Exactly. Jamaica's talking about resilience, moving parts of the power grid underground, which is expensive but necessary,
Right.
and practical things too, like waiving import taxes on solar panels, on Starlink kits, trying to get decentralized, tougher systems in place faster.
That idea of building back stronger is crucial, especially when you think about, well, disasters compounding each other. Which brings us to the Pacific and Typhoon Kalmaegi in the Philippines.
Yeah.
66 deaths reported there.
Yeah, and what's really striking about Kalmaegi is this layering effect. The province hit hardest, Cebu, was still recovering from a big earthquake, a 6.9 magnitude quake just back on September 30th. That quake had already killed 79 people.
So thousands were already displaced by the earthquake.
Exactly. They'd just been moved into what were supposed to be sturdier shelters, and then the typhoon slams in. It's just one thing after another.
And the local governor in Cebu raised some difficult questions too, didn't he? About factors beyond just the storm itself.
Yes, and this is where you see how human factors can make a natural hazard so much worse. He suggested the flooding from the typhoon's rains might have been amplified by years of quarrying, digging rock and gravel, which caused heavy siltation, basically choking rivers. Combine that with, reportedly, substandard flood control projects. And there was apparently a recent corruption scandal tied to exactly that kind of infrastructure work.
So it's not just the rain, it's the whole system's vulnerability. Poor planning, maybe corruption.
It turns a hazard into a much bigger disaster. It highlights that human decisions, or lack thereof, play a huge role in the final outcome.
That connection between infrastructure, risk, and human factors, it kind of echoes in some of the security incidents we saw. Let's shift gears a bit. Flights suspended at Brussels Airport, and also Liege, which is a massive cargo hub in Europe, all because of drones.
Yeah, unauthorized drone sightings. And it wasn't just Belgium. This seems to be part of a pattern. Similar shutdowns happen in Copenhagen and Oslo, and even over sensitive sites like the Klein Brogel Air Base in Belgium. It's unnerving.
And the Belgian defense minister didn't mince words. Called the Brussels incident likely the work of professionals aiming for destabilization. What does that imply?
Well, professionals suggest it wasn't just some kid flying a toy. It suggests skill, maybe coordination, and destabilization. That points towards potentially state-sponsored activity, or at least highly organized groups. Testing responses, intelligence gathering, disrupting critical infrastructure. Think about it. If a few drones can shut down a major international airport or a key cargo hub like Liege, that exposes a serious vulnerability in logistics, in movement. It forces security resources inwards.
A different kind of infrastructure vulnerability, really.
Exactly. And that vulnerability in logistics chains became tragically real with the UPS cargo plane crash in Kentucky.
Yeah, that was awful news.
Yeah.
Shortly after takeoff, at least 7 deaths, multiple injuries.
Just terrible. Witnesses apparently saw fire on one wing right as it took off. Then a huge fireball on impact, setting buildings nearby ablaze. It's a stark reminder that our global supply chains rely on complex machinery and human skill, and sometimes, tragically, things go wrong with devastating consequences.
Okay, let's turn now towards the human element that underpins so many of these global systems. Starting with essential labor, specifically in German healthcare. Your sources point out just how reliant Germany is on immigrant staff.
Oh, absolutely critical. The numbers are stark. Nearly 1 in 4 nursing staff in German nursing homes is a foreign national. The sources basically say the entire sector would collapse without them. So getting them there is one thing, but keeping them is the real challenge.
And researchers dug into why retention is proving so difficult. They found some deep-seated problems.
Yeah, researchers at FAU, University of Erlangen-Nuremberg, they found multiple layers of issues. First, there's often this profound professional disappointment. You have people trained for quite skilled tasks back home, say. Nurses from the Philippines qualify to give IVs, complex procedures. They get to Germany, and because of how the system works, credentialing issues, bureaucracy, they find themselves doing mainly basic care. Washing, feeding. It's incredibly disheartening for someone with higher skills.
I can only imagine. That must completely deflate the reason they migrated professionally in the first place.
Totally. Then there's the financial side. Exploitation is a strong word, but it fits. Some workers are paying private recruitment agencies huge fees, up to 12,000 euros, that's over $13,800 just to get the job and the visa. So they arrive already in debt, often needing second jobs just to pay back those agency fees. It's a real trap.
12,000 euros.
Yeah.
Wow, that sets up a cycle of precarity right from the start.
It really does. And then you add what they call the double burden. You're working long, demanding shifts in care, and you're expected to study German, navigate a complex bureaucracy, often struggle with local dialects that are hard even if you know standard German. It's exhausting.
And on top of all that practical stress.
There's racism. The workers surveyed reported definitely experiencing racism. And you put all that together, the professional letdown, the debt, the daily grind, the discrimination, and you can see why skilled workers might look elsewhere. Countries like Canada are actively recruiting them. So Germany's struggling to retain the very people its essential services depend on. It's a long-term vulnerability.
That theme of exploitation unfortunately connects to another source, a really disturbing report on human trafficking into scam compounds in Asia. We saw a court ruling in Morocco recently, someone sentenced for trafficking.
Yes, a 5-year sentence and a hefty fine. This case really pulls back the curtain on how this works now. The traffickers lured young Moroccans with fake promises, high-paying call center jobs in Thailand. Sounds legit, right? But instead, they were moved across borders into these guarded compounds, primarily in Myanmar, and forced into crime running online fraud, romance scams, crypto scams.
From Morocco all the way to Myanmar. That's quite a distance. What's the estimated scale of this?
The UN estimates are chilling, possibly 120,000 people trapped in these scam centers, mostly across Southeast Asia. Victims who got out talked about witnessing torture. Release often only came after families paid huge ransoms, frequently demanded in cryptocurrency to make it harder to trace. It's modern slavery, facilitated by technology.
Okay, let's try to pivot from that grim reality to, well, changes in political landscapes, and then maybe end on some science. Starting in New York City, Zohran Mamdani won the mayoral race, identifying as a democratic socialist. That term gets used a lot in the U.S. What does it mean in this specific context, according to the sources?
Yeah, it's important to define. In current American usage, particularly at the city level, analysts described it as pushing for government-funded social programs that are, let's say, significantly more generous than the status quo. So think higher levels of social welfare spending compared to maybe the mainstream Democratic Party platform. Government-provided childcare was cited as a key example. The idea is often funded by taxing wealth more heavily.
But winning the election is one thing. Implementing that agenda seems like it'll face hurdles, even in New York.
That's the crux of it, the political friction. NYC itself might lean that way politically, but a lot of the actual power, the purse strings, the regulations needed for these big programs rests with New York State. And the state government is described as not nearly as liberal. So, for instance, Mamdani's proposed tax increases on the very wealthy, that needs state approval, and the governor is reportedly opposed. It's that classic tension. City-level ambition running into state-level fiscal or political reality.
Got it. Okay, finally, let's end with something from the world of high-tech science. A potentially major advance. The development of sophisticated synthetic antibody therapies.
Right, this is fascinating stuff. It's about tackling severe infections, like potentially H5N1 bird flu, maybe even chronic conditions like HIV down the line. The context here is that older antibody therapies, like some monoclonals used against COVID-19, had a weakness. They usually target just one specific spot on a virus.
And viruses mutate, right? So that target changes and the drug stops working.
Exactly. That's the problem they saw clearly with COVID variants. So the innovation here is about outsmarting mutation. Researchers working on H5N1 developed a dual targeting strategy.
So targeting?
Yeah, they engineered synthetic antibodies that grab onto two different essential parts of the virus at the same time, specifically the stem region, which is often quite stable, and the part the virus uses to latch onto our host cells. By hitting both spots simultaneously, it makes it incredibly difficult for the virus to mutate in a way that escapes the antibody. It's a much more robust approach.
That sounds like a really clever way to overcome the virus's evolution trick.
It really is, and the potential goes beyond just bird flu. The next step is finding these highly conserved parts on other viruses, like SARS-CoV-2, the bits that don't change much even as the virus mutates overall. If you can design antibodies to hit those stable targets, you could potentially boost vaccine effectiveness or even create treatments that work against a whole range of related coronaviruses, SARS-1, maybe even future ones from bats or pangolins. It's like aiming for a pan-coronavirus defense.
So looking back across everything today, the sheer destructive power of Hurricane Melissa, the vulnerabilities exposed by those drones, the heartbreaking exploitation of essential workers and trafficking victims, and then this intricate, innovative science.
It really paints a picture of contrast, doesn't it? On one side, you have these massive physical and biological forces, storms requiring billions in resilience, viruses demanding incredibly clever molecular engineering. But on the other side, equally challenging are these very human, very complex social and systemic problems. Like, how do we actually hold on to essential healthcare workers when the system itself seems to discourage them through bureaucracy, debt, and discrimination, even in wealthy countries that desperately need their skills?
You have a lot to think about.
Absolutely. And maybe here's a final thought for you to mull over. If our scientists can innovate strategies like dual targeting antibodies to fight complex mutating viruses, what kinds of innovative, multifaceted, maybe even dual targeting strategies do we need to design and deploy for our entrenched social problems? How do we tackle simultaneously the systemic issues like racism and debt traps that undermine the well-being of the very people essential to keeping our own societies functioning, like those healthcare workers? Something to consider.